Hi everyone, I'm Lou Amadeo. I'm a Vice President of Digital Strategy at Rise Interactive, and we're really excited to host this virtual event today. Thank you for joining us as we discuss the 7 most important aspects of building a best-in-class website. So to start, I want to make sure everyone is ready for today's great discussion. And before we begin, we're going to ask you to quickly answer a poll that should be popping up on this webinar screen right now. The poll is going to be about what is the most challenging aspect of building a best-in-class website at your organization. So you should be seeing that poll up right now. So if you could please input your response, we'll start collecting those. Then as I wait for responses to come in, let me get to some quick housekeeping items. So first, this conversation will be recorded and a copy will be sent to you later today and emailed to you. We welcome you to revisit the conversation and also share this with your colleagues. We do invite your comments and questions. Please find the question tabs in your sidebar. You can use this to ask any questions to our speakers. And if we don't have time to answer them all on the agenda, we will send out the answers afterwards. And then lastly, there's also a chat box in your sidebar as well. Please use this should you have any kind of technical issues or other questions not directed to the speakers, and our support team will be happy to assist you. So those are the quick housekeeping items. I'm checking now into the poll in my side panel. I'll give it just a few more seconds here because I see some votes are still coming in. About 52% of you have voted, so I'll hold off a little bit. So far, understanding your audience is getting the most votes, but we're kind of getting close to 60% here, and I'll share those results, and then we'll kind of tailor some of the presentation based on where people had the most challenges. So we'll keep climbing up here. All right. So we're hovering around 70%. If those that haven't voted could get their votes in, then we'll get as much data as possible and we'll kick off the agenda. 80%, let's get those 20% in, please. All right. 85%. I think once we get to 90, we'll call it. So we're almost there. Okay, so how about we close the poll? I think we've got the majority of responses in, and just to quickly recap what those results were, about 86% voted, 33% was the most any singular topic got, and that was understanding your audiences. So that's one that we'll definitely dig into. We have a lot of great content prepared for that. The next one was measurement, was 28%, followed by, okay, here we go. It's actually coming up on the screen now, so great. So you can kind of see where the results came in, understanding your audiences, followed by measurement, and then kind of equal voting for branding and design, SEO, and technology. So thank you for providing this feedback. We're hoping that we can share a lot of great valuable content with you today across all of these, but good to know kind of where all of you stand in the audience. So just a quick introduction. As I mentioned, my name is Lou Amadeo. I'm a Vice President of Digital Strategy at Rise. I've been building websites for almost the last decade and have a lot of experience in web design and development, and really kind of happy to be here and share my experience as well as our talented group of panelists here. So we're going to dive in now and kind of just quickly show the agenda, which will be popping up in a minute. So now more than ever before, with the impacts of COVID, websites and digital experiences are critical to the success of your business. And today's agenda is going to cover the 7 most important aspects of building a best-in-class website as kind of listed on this agenda. One thing to note is just that while we'll be talking about each of these aspects kind of individually today, we believe that integrating all of these into your website project is the true way to have a successful outcome. So keep that in mind. You don't want to be doing only a few of these things in silos. You really want them to all be integrated. Before we dive into the core content, I want to introduce my fellow panelists who will be sharing their thoughts and experiences about how they navigated these aspects during their own website redesign process. So first, I want to introduce my colleague and creative partner at Rise for the last 8 years, Jean Zhang. She's a VP of Customer Experience at Rise Interactive. So Jean, please share a little bit about yourself and your experience building websites.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jean. I've been with Rise for almost 9 years now. I oversee the customer experience team in charge of all creative and development, and I've touched just about every web development project that Rise has launched. And I've been very lucky to work with all of our panelists today on their award-winning websites.
Great, thanks, Jean. Next, we're going to introduce Robert Prieto. He's the manager of web marketing at Nicklaus Children's Hospital. So Robert, if you could please say hello and just share a little bit of background on your role at Nicklaus Children's.
Hi, everyone. Yes, from Robert. I've been managing the web efforts at Nicklaus Children's Hospital, known as Miami Children's Hospital for quite some time, and we're now known as Nicklaus Children's Hospital for the past 12 years. My background is in technology and development, and love it here. So hopefully you'll be able to give you some insights.
Thanks, Robert. So next, we're going to introduce Marcia Diaz de Villegas, Marketing and Brand Officer at Nicklaus Children's. So Marcia, if you could please share some background overall on the organization, your role there, and just a brief explanation of the journey you went through from the moment you kind of realized you needed a new website to what you were looking for in a partner and how you got buy-in from your organization.
There we go. So hi everyone, I'm Marcia and I've been here for 23 years. I have experience in both for-profit and not-for-profit marketing. So I oversee the health system marketing, communications, digital media, foundation marketing. And Nicklaus Children's is the region's health system that's just for children. We see children from all over the world, and we have a system of outpatient centers as well.
Thanks, Marcia. Seems like we're having just a little bit of a difficulty with our screens, but we're gonna move on. Last but not least, Julia Fitzgerald, CMO at American Lung Association. Julia, similar to what I asked Marcia to share, if you could just provide a little bit of background on American Lung Association, your role, and then a brief explanation of the journey you went through when you realized you needed a new website and what you were looking for in a partner and how you got that buy-in from your organization.
Sure. So again, I'm Julia, CMO, so I'm in charge of traditional marketing, communications, and also our digital marketing. And as it turns out, really our digital renovation and digital transformation. The American Lung Association is the leading not-for-profit in lung health. Our vision is a world free of lung disease. And the areas where you will see us working really are to defeat lung cancer, champion clean air for all, create a tobacco-free future, and then also help everyone deal with lung disease, such as COPD, asthma, and COVID-19, of course. So that's where you may have seen us a little bit more recently in the news. I started with the American Lung Association about 1.5 years ago, and at that point, it became clear that our website was challenged. It didn't work technically well. Our CMS was old. It was difficult to work with. Our loading speeds were an embarrassment. And it didn't look like a modern, reliable site. So just from how it appeared, what the customer experience was, and the functional difficulties really made it ripe for an upgrade. And really to be a useful converter. And when we think of the converter, we think that your website should help convert people to what they want to do and what you want them to do, but also to convert how they feel and think about you as a brand and as an organization. So we needed some help with our conversion machine.
Thank you, Julia. I think that's just a really interesting point about how you think about how you use the site just as a way to get people to feel a different way about your organization. I think that we have within the branding and design section some really interesting content around that. So thanks to all our panelists for the introductions. It looks like our tech difficulties are solved for the moment. So we're going to dive into our core agenda here and start with that first aspect of building a best-in-class website, which is the usage of data and analytics. So, why do data and analytics matter? We believe that because data shows how your users are engaging with your brand now, that can really help you better navigate in the future. And it's really the idea of, if you don't understand the current state, you don't understand your users, their behavior on the website, how can you really expect to have a vision for what that future state looks like? So in this section of the presentation, in a moment, we're going to have Robert from Nicholas Children's speak to their approach for investing in some really strategic pre-design work of collecting valuable user experience data. But first, I want to walk through just a few slides to help provide a little bit more context for our attendees before I turn it over to Robert. So on the next slide, what you're going to see is that Robert and team partnered with us to put together a comprehensive approach to gathering UX data, which included numerous techniques such as voice of consumer surveys, heat and click maps, session replay, persona analysis, form field testing, and even more. And really what having a robust program like this ensured was that there's a collection of really deep, actionable data insights that ended up fueling the redesign strategy when we tackled that redesign project. So I wanted to just show a couple examples of what that looked like. So on the next slide, you're going to see just an example scroll map and an example heat map. And these were just, again, some of the techniques that we took to understand when a user gets to a page, what is their behavior? Where is their friction? Where are they spending their time? Where are they trying to click? So again, there was more. This is kind of the tip of the iceberg that I'm showing, but we used a lot of these different techniques to gather that user feedback data. On the next slide, you'll see just an example of a voice of consumer survey, which is a kind of a more of an open, sometimes they're open-ended, sometimes they can be very kind of specific in terms of the questioning. But what this one showed is that on the old Nicholas Children's site, almost 80% of people that had gone through about 5 page views still couldn't find what they were looking for. So these kind of nuggets and these insights really helped us understand where there was friction, where there was pain, and we could then use that data to come up with a better design strategy for the new site. So Robert, I'd like to turn this over to you now so that you could just share some thoughts on first how you secured buy-in to invest in collecting user experience data, because it was great that you had that foresight. It's not the most common thing that we've seen is people being able to invest in design or the redesign before the project actually starts. And then just if you can kind of tease out some of the benefits that you saw that you gained during the redesign project by using that user experience data we collected prior.
Yeah, so definitely this was the redesign was quite an experience, really insightful. We learned quite a bit about the audience because we intentionally wanted to get feedback from the audience. Just to give a little background, the original website when I joined 12 years ago was on a legacy CMS, and we kind of had to go into a progression, moving into an enterprise level CMS. That came with a redesign that was not really informed from user feedback. It was just a need. We looked very similar to other sites. You'll probably cover that a little later on. And really the important piece that in my opinion was the most important is really getting the insights, get the feedback, because necessarily what we put up on the website is not what people really need all the time, right? We assume we have a large audience, about 9 different types of personas, different individuals that might come and frequent the website, everything from a vendor to, apparently a parent. But then all of our parents may not be looking for the same service, right? We have over 40 plus subspecialty services. So understanding what really was missing on the site was crucial, and one of the biggest pieces that we needed to get buy-in from our executive team to make sure that we could invest in a voice of customer surveys that were necessary. We really had done some of it, years back, but it wasn't really for the purpose of rebranding or redesigning. Coincidentally, we've gone through a couple of rebrands. Like I had mentioned, we were Miami Children's Hospital. We transitioned to Nicholas Children's Hospital. Then our health system changed its name, and so on and so forth. We've gone through quite a bit of rebranding these days, but it's been very so this process was very insightful. Primarily because of the first part was that voice of customer survey. We ran it for, funny enough, for 9 months. You know, not on purpose. You know, but it so happened to be it was three 3-month periods, and we ended up getting really great feedback. It was based off of an exit survey. So if we, the platform we were using thought that you were going to be exiting, you would get prompted for a survey, and or on site. So depending if you were on our appointment form page or other sections of the site, we would ask for feedback, and you know, we suspected things that were proven to be otherwise. You know, the biggest question in the survey, we had several questions, but the biggest one was, you know, what are you looking for specifically? And services was number one, and appointments was number two. We thought that we were positioning our services the right way. That feedback. Billing was a big one. So all of that really informed. Aside from everything else that we do, you know, where we've been doing it for the past 6-7 years, where, you know, we continually do heat mapping, and we do some conversion optimization and things of that sort. We have a great partner. You know, we actually partner with Rise as well on the digital marketing side. But you know, we ended up choosing them as a partner for the redesign. Really worked out really well for us. And then the persona analysis kind of aligned. We knew who our audience was, and the feedback from this piece. So it is, in my opinion, is the most important part. And I'm glad you put this in the front of the deck, Lou, because it is, and Jean, because this is critical. You need to understand what people are looking for so you can prepare your constituents. You know, and we'll cover that a little bit, because you need to have, this is a big team that you need to have all buy in, so this is a success.
Great, thanks so much, Robert. Just to kind of cherry pick a couple comments that I heard that I think are really kind of important to underscore are clearing up assumptions. You know, whether it's your design team or creative team or your internal marketing team, you know, people think that they know what, you know, the user behavior is or what the right decisions are, and, you know, sometimes they're right, but sometimes they're not. And I think that investing in this type of user feedback data collection early on really kind of just, in a way, bulletproofs you, so that when you are doing the design and development of the actual redesign, you have supreme confidence that you know where you're going because of that. So that was just one thing that I wanted to kind of underscore, is that this can help clear up assumptions. And then the other piece I think that's important is that, you know, a lot of times when we talk to clients about, you know, investing in a website redesign project, which can be, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, a lot of the feedback is, well, how do I know that that this is going to have a good return on my investment? And how do we know that this is the right investment? And I think that's another way that you kind of bulletproof yourself from that, is doing that pre-work up front, so you have all of the qualitative and quantitative data that can arm you with all of the, you know, rationale on your decision making, so that if there is any doubt in the organization that the new site will not have a great ROI or will not perform, you can fall back on that and say, we are very confident based on all of the testing and data collection we did up front. So those are just a couple, you know, things I wanted to kind of underscore for the group. But thanks for, you know, sharing your story around this. And I have to, you know, credit you and Marcia and the rest of your organization for really having that foresight to do that before we started the full redesign. So the next topic we're going to go over, the next aspect, is understanding your audiences. So this again was the one that had about 33% of the votes. It was the one that, you know, people say that is the biggest challenge for them when they're thinking about a redesign at their organization. So want to kind of start by, you know, again, why does this matter? Well, because understanding the who gives us clear insight into a better what and how. And we think that that's really true. Is, you know, it seems obvious that you have to understand your audiences, but again, how do you really get to know them? Whether that is, you know, talking to them or getting voice of consumer feedback or some other methods, you really have to know what their needs are, what their motivations are before you start that redesign, so you can really deliver on what their expectations are. So in a moment, I'm going to turn this over to Julia from American Lung Association to speak to, you know, their approach of tailoring the website to each of their constituent groups. But before that, I want to just provide a couple slides that show a little context to help set up that conversation. So without stealing Julia's thunder, and she's going to do a much better job of explaining this than me, American Lung Association has multiple constituent groups that they have to serve, ranging from the general public to healthcare audiences and beyond. And what I'm showing here on the screen here is just a snippet from a page that's on the current site that shows all the different ways that these constituent groups can get involved with American Lung Association, whether that's they're going to attend an event, or they're going to donate money, or they're going to volunteer or become an educator. And the point of showing this is just to kind of surface the idea that there's going to be so many different audiences with different motivations, and you need to have unique, memorable, engaging web experiences for each and every one. So as you can see on the American Lung Association site, there's all these kind of jumping off points where if someone wants to find an event, you've got great content, it's easy to find, it's engaging on the site. So I won't go any further, because Julia, again, will do a better job of explaining kind of that situation at American Lung. But one other last example I wanted to show, if you go to the next slide, is just kind of like a use case of what that is. We're showing a donations web experience before, and then one that was after, launched during the redesign. So, on the surface, it seems like maybe there's not much change here, but if you take a look at this, you can kind of really see that, the previous version, it was lacking, a little bit of humanity, a little bit of warmth. These donations go to helping, cure lung disease and helping people with their ailments. And we needed an opportunity to create a stronger brand connection between, the donor, American Lung Association, and those with lung disease that those donations are supporting. So again, this is just one quick example of how we tried to think through creating, updated, memorable experiences for constituent groups. But I want to turn this over to Julia now. Can you please just share some thoughts on, the considerations taken to tailor the website experience to the needs and behaviors of each of your constituent groups?
Sure, and I think you did a great job of showing the different journeys, as well as the different people who come in with different needs. So sometimes you have people who will come in with different needs, someone who's interested in smoking cessation and somebody who's interested in clean air, but they both are there to make a donation. So in some instances, we needed to consider, what is the journey? What do they want to do? Get information, share their story. So we took one look at these audiences just by observing our legacy website and said, these are the activities. And then Rice did a great job with us to really examine each one of the activities, or if you're looking at Google Analytics, your conversions, your goals, to make sure it's really easy to get to those. And then the other pass through for us was to take a look at the different things that we do for Americans and the different venues that they're going to come into, and can they quickly access the information that they're looking for. And that's where I think, Rice was actually a really good partner with us as we talked to different people within our organization, because we have some folks who've been with the group for a long time. They had deep knowledge, and they also felt very included because they were able to speak to the RISE development team about what was most important to convey about either COPD, or who generally comes, what are the characteristics of the people who come to learn about asthma. So those upfront sharing moments of our subject matter experts with the RISE team let us design better for each of our different audiences.
Great, thanks, Julia, for that context. And just to quickly, recap some of the things that I think are really important is, obviously your website analytics data is really ripe for understanding your audiences and their behavior. But I think maybe the more important thing is how you involve, your people across your entire organization that have an understanding and maybe have many years of tenure working there, that have an angle on the audience that you might not know by talking to a smaller group. So I think that's another kind of credit to both of these organizations for really kind of making sure that they brought in the right people at the right time for that feedback. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in the collaboration section. But thanks for your comments, Julia. We're going to next move on to the next aspect, which is branding and design. In this section, we're going to have both of our client panelists speak about their experiences here because they were both really interesting challenges and opportunities to kind of reinvent who they were and how they were perceived. So on the next slide, we're just going to quickly talk like, why does branding and design matter? This stat, and there's numerous studies out there that kind of say the same thing, which is, people's perception of a website design has a direct correlation to their trust in your brand. And that's the first kind of time they might be seeing you online, or it's your digital storefront, and you really need to kind of have that immediate connection and trust established through your design. Additionally, for those of you that maybe haven't kind of kept up with some of the things that came out maybe just a week ago from Google, they just announced that Google will favor websites with great UX in its search results. So whereas Google was favoring content and organization and mobile, they are now starting to favor UX. So it's just another reason why you want to make sure that you have really great design and branding on your site. So in a moment, we're going to have Marcia from Nicholas Children's speak to their approach for using design as a tool to transform their brand and differentiate from the competition. But first, I just want to walk through a couple of slides to help provide a little more context. So on the next slide, kind of just see the before. And what we see here is we didn't put up the competitive set in this, but Nicholas Children's Hospital looked very similar to some of people in the competitive set, and there wasn't much differentiation there. So we really needed to figure out how we can kind of evolve that brand so it could really stand out and be different. If you go to the next slide, Nicholas Children's challenged Rise to help evolve the brand, help transform it. And they gave us that ample room and trust to explore what an updated digital identity could look like. So just kudos to them and to any organization that's willing to put some trust and risk in the design process. Marcia and Robert will kind of speak to that, but I think that they did an excellent job of trusting the process and taking some risk. What you're seeing here is just an example mood board. If you can go back, an example mood board we created to kind of align both Rise and Nicholas Children's on a new visual language that we could kind of inject into the brand. The next slide will show you just a couple different design concepts we put together, and Marcia will kind of speak to how she took these design concepts internally and did some testing, which was really neat. And then eventually, if we see the next slide here, you can kind of see the end product comparing before and after. And I think it's kind of it's really a different look and feel. It's a different kind of layout. It's not really kind of hard edges and grids. And there's a lot more that that really kind of we pulled out and we transitioned the Nicholas Children's brand to kind of be different and stand out from the competition. So finally, the last slide is just a quick kind of animated view of the full homepage. So you can see that more kind of pastel-y, bright Miami-esque colors, animation, these organic shapes, this just feeling of warmth and embraces, like all of these things came together to kind of, I think, really come up with a new identity for Nicholas Children's. So now we're going to hear from Marcia. Marcia, if you could just please share some thoughts on the reasons why you wanted to transform your brand,
Yes.
how you got your fellow colleagues and partner agencies to kind of lean in on that process, and just how that final concept was received by your organization.
Okay. So when we were looking at rebranding the hospital website, as Robert mentioned, we have pretty much been specialists at rebranding here in the last few years, from a name change for 65th anniversary, and then shortly thereafter we changed the name of the health system. So in the first slide that you showed, if you wouldn't mind kind of going to that one, here what we have is what happens in a lot of organizations, was everybody has an opinion on how you look. Everybody loves to kind of be a marketer. And if you look at the iconography and a lot of different buttons and things, they were really a culmination of what a lot of internal stakeholders felt like our website should look like. So we have, our marketing advisory committee meeting, and people would come to us with ideas, and there was always like a push and a pull for, what made it to the homepage. And this was actually the way that we looked in 2015 when we had just put in the enterprise level content management system. So we had put it together, and it was led by both marketing, our IT department, some folks in governance, and And it was really, certainly you look at it and it's attractive enough. It's pediatrics, but if you took away, the upper third and you put in the name of any other children's hospital, it would probably be fine for any other children's hospital. So we really wanted something that would speak to how we were different, how was it Miami? But we also wanted to make sure that in redesigning, we weren't breaking any of the, the progress that we had made with you at Rise in really making our website bring us new patients. We had all of our calls to action working well. We were getting a lot of leads. We were able to monitor the results really of our website. So one of the things I wanted to cover that I couldn't at the beginning was why Rise? There are a lot of organizations, businesses that do really nice designs, but for us, it was important to stay on the same trajectory for success with our website. So to be honest, we wanted that same accountability in the design. You can always have a very pretty website, but is it going to keep you being successful? And that was very important. Pediatrics is not the same business it was when I started here many years ago. It's a very crowded business space where many general acute care hospitals have also opened up pediatric facilities or have even expanded. So it's very important that your website, which is really where the young mom goes first, and that website be optimized for the mobile experience. So we wanted an agency that understood us and would capitalize on that and would also work well with our traditional agency. And so with the branding, we wanted to really give you the freedom to come up with different options. And as we went through our process, we asked a lot of different stakeholders to just kind of email us, these are the websites that we like. And it could be anything from Home Depot to Loft, Ann Taylor, whatever it was, and then tell us what they liked about it. We incorporated our Family Advisory Council. We have a group of parents who, for whatever reason, either they were delighted or they had some challenges, but they wanted to partner with us to take things to the best quality level. And so we really worked with a lot of different stakeholders to help us decide. We didn't want this to be a design that was just informed by marketing or a compromise between marketing, IT, governance, and some consumers. We really wanted it to be the voice of the customer. So we actually provided these different designs and did virtual focus groups. We had them answer a few questions and ultimately pick amongst the options that we had. And we also had a group of young employees, both moms and dads, who we had weigh in. Through our talent management department, we had been working through a group of employees who were also helping to guide some of our marketing because they themselves are our customers. So we gave them an ability to weigh in and look at the different design concepts. What were the areas that we really needed to focus on? And interestingly, it was not the choice that we ultimately went with was not the one that either Robert or I would have chosen. And but they loved the movement of it was really something that was very different. And then bringing up front some of that data that shows it's very important for parents to know that they're coming to the place who sees the most children, that has the most experience, and there's nothing like infographics have grown so much. And so we wanted to bring that out to the homepage. And, in the end, I felt like, we had made that difference from almost like an editorial. What you had a few minutes ago, it was just kind of like almost like a newspaper view which a lot of websites had gone to. And you really reached something that kind of made you curious to look and see what was happening. One of the things that we were proud of was that we had oftentimes digital and traditional agencies work in silos. We've been very fortunate to not have pride of ownership in either agency. They really work for what's best for us. And we have this custom photography library that we had worked on, and we had over 700 photos that are either actual patients or models. And we found a way to integrate them, because how many times do you go to a website and you find that this really charming image is on another hospital website? So that was something that I think worked effectively for us. We were able to, break down those barriers and have really a team effort where we were looking at not only having an attractive website, but one that was using the data that Robert and his team had garnered from the Qualtrics study that was going to bring the consumer the information on the medical services, on the billing, on where our locations are, how many doctors do we have, would bring that to the forefront. But then, quite honestly, we could still have RISE accountable for keeping us on that trajectory. So we kind of avoided, what happens sometimes is organizations bring in another firm to do design, and then there's like a he said, she said, well, the SEO is not good because that was, we weren't focusing on that in the design. And then the digital agency can say, well, we didn't work on that aspect. So we didn't want to have that. And, we had worked with RISE for a while. And one of the things that's good about your design shop is that you don't subcontract it. Some agencies do that. You have an in-house team that has the experience and, and fully understands the account. So.
Thanks so much, Marcia. I think there's a lot of great nuggets in there involving your internal teams and getting feedback, kind of just trusting the process, allowing the teams to take risks. So thank you for that commentary.
Sure.
Now we're going to, in a moment, hear from Julia at American Lung Association. She's going to speak about managing both a brand refresh and website redesign project in parallel. First, I'm going to quickly go over some of the setup slides and then turn it over to Julia. So there's a kind of a quick before state. And again, American Lung Association was going through a brand refresh project in parallel with a redesign project. So you can kind of see the before state here. Similar to what we did for Nicholas Children's is on the next slide, you'll see that we created a mood board. And really what we did here is we worked with Julia and team and their branding agency to take some of the elements of the new brand and figure out how to create, digital assets or digital identity out of that new branding. So this is a mood board that kind of served to kind of align the organizations on the new visuals and how it might look in a website. And then the next slide is finally just the homepage design that was launched just a few months ago. So you can see the pretty stark contrast from the before and after. I want to turn it over to Julia now. If you could just share some thoughts on how you successfully parallel pathed, major initiatives, a brand refresh and a website redesign project, how your internal team acted as the conduit across those partner agencies, and then, when you knew that the design treatment that RISE provided you was the one that you felt was the best application of your new branding.
Sure. So, the actual rebranding of an organization like this takes months. We had not really rebranded in over 100 years. So it was something we took under close consideration. I had a lot of buy-in on it and spent about 9 to 10 months on the whole process, because it's more than a good rebrand is more than just changing your logo and your colors. So after all this work, we did in fact want to change our logo and our colors as well. But we looked at our website as being really the primary asset, the primary way that people see us. We have over 1 million new visitors every month. So this was a key piece of the brand launch. So we were carefully working through this. Our brand group had come up with some designs, and the way we did this in collaboration is we handed their design guideline over to Rise. Rise actually became the group that created our digital designs, because as you do this, you kind of come up with your core traditional new brand communication, but it always needs some nuancing so that it makes sense in your digital ecosystem. So that the kind of the mood board that Lou shared was their first shot back to us, where they took what our branding group gave us and said, how does this look and feel? And we kind of did that, huzzah, this is it. And it actually helped us keep designing more of our digital assets. So it was really a good partnership, one-in-one there. It was kind of interesting because we have this brand refresh ready to go that was targeted towards the end of March. And then the web was supposed to follow it, well, actually precede it by 1 week. And what else happened in March? Oh yeah, that whole COVID pandemic, it came and it sent us all home. So we look at this with both smiles and then also kind of like palms to face, because normally when you do these kind of things, you're all together and it's all coming together, and we were all basically doing the end part of this work from our home offices, bedrooms, and basements, and yet it still came together quite nicely. So that is the Reader's Digest version of our 115-year brand refresh, coming together with a web refresh mixed together with a lung health pandemic.
Quite the needle to thread there.
It was quite a quarter for us. Yes.
Yes. Well, again, congrats on the launch and the rebranding. I think it's been really successful for you. So so that closes out the branding and design section. Next, we're going to turn it over to Jean, who is going to cover both the SEO and measurement sections.
Hey, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great. So why does SEO matter? If you want to go, yes. The most common cause for loss of traffic is that your business made changes to your site. This is something that I think just about everyone on the line can understand. If something plummets with traffic, that's where you go to look first. So as you can imagine, launching a new website can have major implications on your organic traffic, for better or for worse. Next slide. One thing we really pride ourselves on at Rise is how closely we've interwoven SEO within our web development process. This has really allowed us to work with clients like Nicklaus Children's Hospital, as well as American Lung Association, to restructure their sites, make a lot of changes, and still see stable traffic after launch. Alternatively, one thing we hear all the time in our line of work are horror stories about websites that launch with tons of time spent on their branding, on their experience, on their content, only to see that plummet in traffic as soon as the launch actually hits. What's even worse with that is oftentimes that loss of traffic, usually directly intertwined with the loss of page authority or domain authority, can be nearly impossible to recover if things aren't done right between that initial launch phase. So you can imagine that at the start of most of our project, our clients have that same mindset and come to us with that exact type of language. If you go to the next slide, please. One of the key requirements for SEO that we see all the time is actually quite simply, really don't F it up. We took this directly from one of our fine panelists today. We will not say who, but this was something that was directly given to us from not only one of our panelists, but really everyone that we work with within a new website launch. Luckily, we've been really able to master this ability of launching sites without breaking anything. And there are a few key considerations that I'm going to walk you through that we keep in mind, a little bit agnostic of the clients that we're talking about right now, but more so within the broader scope of SEO. So the first thing that we really want to look at and confirm that we have set up properly is a really strong redirect strategy. Usually what our team does at Rise is more of a one-to-one URL mapping process to make sure that we're retaining any organic traffic that past pages have, and then directing certain key pages to appropriate corresponding pages if we're consolidating topics for the purposes of better user experience or a more concise and tight content strategy. Within more complex website redesigns, what we'll do is more of a scalable mapping strategy that takes categories of categories of pages and maps it to different pages. The second thing that's really important for us to consider, that we worked throughout our process and also worked on with Nicklaus Children's Hospital as well as American Lung Association, is to make sure that we're heavily involving our SEO team within our navigation and our sitemap work. So usually what we'll do is we'll sit down with our user experience team, but then that our SEO team is involved so that they're able to help us understand how users are really searching for topics, not just necessarily within the confines of the site, but from a broader scale as well. And what that allows us to do is help our sites better rank for key content that users are looking for in a language that our users are looking for it in and used to using. Last but not least, the thing that we want to make sure that we're implementing in all of our website launches is that we have a strong technical strategy, thinking through specifically our XML sitemap and our robots.txt strategy. What the XML sitemap really allows us to do is to tie the bow on the whole process. Google crawlers and Bing crawlers, the changes that we've made on the website, allowing us to map old and new, and really help them show what we've done and allow their crawlers to understand where the new pages live. Separately, our robots.txt files allows us to minimize any issues with duplicate content, lean content, and really help Google and Bing and other search engines crawl our websites appropriately, and set ourselves up for success whenever we're taking something new and we're launching it. Of course, there are plenty of other considerations, but we find that focusing on these ones is a really great place to start for protecting organic traffic. I know that whenever we first started this webinar, we allowed some users to actually ask questions, and we had some questions come in on SEO that I think were directly related to, does it still matter? What are the things I focus on? So I think this does a really good job of kind of capturing that in a nice, neat little package. I'm actually going to move on to measurement now. I'm going to quickly talk about, how we usually view that at Rise, and then I'm going to pass it back to some of our panelists to talk more so about what the rest of the aspects look like within their sites. So similar to how we weave SEO throughout our web development practice, we really do measurement and analytics in the process of everything that we do. Why does it matter? I'm sure you guys have all seen this. What's measured gets managed. Alternatively, it's nearly impossible for us to manage something that we're not measuring. So given this, it's critical with our requirements gathering that we take the time to sit with our clients and align on key goals they're trying to achieve with their website so that we're able to ensure proper tracking is set up to measure key business goals, measure things that are really important to them, and also that the things that they have done in the past are mapped correctly so we can kind of compare apples to apples whenever we do launch our website. Next slide. So at Rise, we look for measurement to really answer a few questions. I'm gonna have you skip one more slide. First and foremost, we're asking measurement to help us understand who our users are, what they're doing on your site, how they're interacting with you. We're also making sure that the user interactions that we expect to happen are happening in the right ways and being tracked. I think that's a key part that we find when we kind of absorb measurement frameworks from other agencies or from our clients that we see maybe going amiss. And then the last thing that we're really seeking to find is what are the friction points that my users have and how can we identify those and then problem solve again. We talked with Nicklaus Children's Hospital about a lot of the pre-work we've done, and luckily we had the analytics infrastructure set because we had already been working on that website. So we were able to take a lot of that and have that actually inform what we did. From a broader perspective as well, we wanted to make sure that with the redesign and the relaunch of the site, we were able to continue that forward trajectory and make sure that we were able to measure everything appropriately. rather than diving into the specifics of what we did for Nicholas Children's Hospital or American Lung Association, I'm going to talk more so about the key things that we tend to find amiss whenever we see a client's analytics for the first time. So there are a few common pitfalls I'm going to talk about. First and foremost is a high bounce rate for content-heavy pages. Now, this is a really interesting concept because we have a lot of clients that spend a ton of time working on really great resources for their users to come and explore. And then separately, we may drive a lot of traffic to those pages through our different media efforts. One thing that is unique about these pages, though, is oftentimes we have users come in, land on the page, read the article as intended, and then leave. If we don't take proper care there, that sometimes can count as a bounce, which is not quite the same if you look at it from a user that lands on your page, immediately doesn't like what they see, and then leaves. So for that reason, what we usually recommend with a high bounce rate on these content-heavy pages for clients that have a lot of content is to implement scroll tracking. Our usual interaction threshold that we like to recommend is a 75% threshold, meaning that if a user views 75% more of the page, it's counted as an interaction versus a bounce rate. So therefore, it gives us a much clearer and accurate view into how users are engaging with your content. The second thing is iframes. When I talked to my analytics and measurement team, they kind of nodded to me and said, like, yeah, iframes are kind of a pain in the butt. And I think that's something that we see commonly with a lot of our clients. And the reason for this is we're starting to build, third-party technology within a website, and the communication there between the actual third party and the actual website sometimes isn't as smooth. And a lot of times, if it's not implemented correctly, there is a data loss. So for instance, we may have a form field that happens within an iframe that doesn't pass off the data for how that user initially got to that page. What we usually recommend there in our analytics audits is that we, in the case of a Google Analytics structure setup, implement a GTM container to help enable tracking and really help close that loop. Start thinking through how we really enable our clients in the end to understand the full process and journey of their users within their websites. The last piece that we see is pretty common is more specific for clients that have multiple domains, and it becomes more of an issue as a user navigates between pages. So this is something that we've seen commonly in maybe a client that has a career site that's on a separate domain, but is something that is commonly linked within their ecosystem of websites. In those instances, what can happen, and what we've seen relatively commonly, is that a user bouncing, for instance, between the main domain and the careers domain will actually count as two users and two separate sessions, and there's also that data loss in between. What we recommend here is that we're really just confirming cross-domain tracking is set up appropriately and correctly so that we can have that referral traffic accurately reflect. It's worth noting that the things I mentioned are common problems that we occur, and I would invite all of the listeners today to maybe poke around within their own analytics frameworks and see if some of these issues may be an issue on your websites. But it is worth noting that in actual engagements, our solutions are, of course, tailored to each client's unique needs. What's really nice about catching these issues within these requirements is that we are able to find out these issues and solve for them so that we can take a website that may have a few different issues with tracking and launch something that is perfect from a measurement framework in a new website launch. Cool, and that's it for me for measurement.
Great, so thanks, Jean. We're running a little bit low on time here, so I think technology, I'm going to take this section. Julie, I might just ask you to provide a quick blurb here, but if we go to the next slide, really what we believe is technology must empower people and organizations. So, really what that means is when we build technology, you really need to understand how the internal teams and stakeholders are going to use it, talk to them about their pain and friction, and then build the technology to make their jobs and lives easier. So I want to show a quick slide just to give a little bit of context for American Lung Association, where we built out the CMS. It was Kentico, and they had a page builder feature in that which essentially allows the internal content editors at American Lung Association to build pages on their own without having needs of the agency. So Juliet, maybe you can just spend 15 seconds and just let us know like what value that CMS technology and the way that it was built out for your organization kind of added value to your organization.
Yeah, this was actually an unexpected boon for us. We had two groups of people working on our website. We have the content producers, and then we have web developers. And with our legacy system, we always had to look either to an outside agency or to our web development team, which is pretty small, to make a change. But with this kind of page builder technology, our content team was actually able to put up simple pages. And it made us just so much more efficient than what we had intended. So when we got through the other side of the web redesign, it was one of those like nice little surprises for us. Much
Great,
more efficient.
Thank you. And then I think just to kind of summarize, it's like, don't just have the technical teams build the technology, speak to everyone in the organization about how they're going to use it and build it appropriately to serve their needs. Got about 5 minutes left here. I think that, this is our last aspect is collaboration. So, why is that important? We've seen it all. We've seen really highly collaborative organizations. We've seen siloed organizations, and collaborative organizations always outperform siloed organizations in website projects. That might seem obvious, but it doesn't always happen. So first I want to hear from Robert at Nicholas Children's. Can you just please share some quick background on what collaboration looked like at your organization and the lasting impacts that those collaborative efforts have had even after the website launched?
Definitely, yeah. So collaboration is super important. One of the key things is you need to make sure that people that today may not be working, if you're planning on a redesign today, they're not working on your website. You want to make them owners of their section of the website. Make sure they feel that they are the ones who control the information that's on there. We can help them with branding and so forth. So that's part of the collaboration. It was so useful for us at the QA level once we were doing quality assurance and making sure everything was set up correctly before going live. And then the whole technical piece of collaboration. We have a great relationship with our IT department. We have weekly calls and we work every day. We're back and forth with different web specific calls. But it was key for them to also feel owners of the website and take pride of that. So that collaboration, and then the collaboration of buying in by your senior leaders, making sure that they understood why we needed to do the pre-work of all the pre-work that we do for the analysis piece to make sure we understand our core demo that we want to communicate to. So the collaboration was so wonderful in our project. We actually had people from all around the world connected the day that we went live. In our case, our go live was in the evening. It was on a Friday night. Typically, people don't like spending time on hospital websites on Friday night. So the data said that was the fact, and we ended up going live. We had folks from Argentina, India. Here in Miami, of course, the Nicholas team, the Rise team in Chicago, and everyone was on a Zoom Zoom connection. We were all testing portions. We went live in little pieces, and we went. I think we went through the whole go live really quickly because of the collaboration, and the collaboration didn't happen that day. It was part of the entire process. So that's the key thing, I think, is just making sure that you start with senior leadership, then let them feel ownership, let them understand the scope of it, then move into the actual stakeholders, the people who are going to be telling you that they need to update the website, have them look over their websites. You'd be surprised how many people don't look at their websites until they need more business or they get a call from someone that something is outdated.
Thanks, Robert. And Julie, unfortunately, I'm going to have to skip past you on this one just because we've got about 2 minutes and I want to wrap up. But, if we can go to the next piece here, just a quick recap. So we've gone over the 7 most important aspects Again, these things need to be integrated in your process and you need to be thinking about all of them. But we just have a couple nuggets on the slide here about what you should be thinking about for each. Investing in that user experience data, making sure you're understanding audiences and crafting memorable experiences for all. Branding and design, take risk, craft and evolve your digital identity. SEO, involve them early in the process to protect your organic traffic. Measurement, make sure that your website analytics are connected to business goals and everything is measured appropriately. Technology, build tech that makes it easy for people to perform. Don't have just the techs building the tech. And then collaboration, unify the organization, bring in new perspectives, and all of these things will lead to success. So I don't think we have time for questions, but if there were questions submitted, we will answer those and follow up and send them over email. I wanted to thank everyone for attending this virtual event. As a reminder, a recording will be sent later today. Thanks to our speakers, Julia, Marcia, Robert, Jean. Thanks so much for all your work and effort here. To everyone, have a great rest of your day. Hope you found this very valuable. Bye, take care.
All right, thanks everyone.